We are good. Okay. Hi, Stefan.
Hey,
Hey,
how's
welcome.
things?
Yeah, good, good. Thanks for coming on. Yeah,
Yeah, new show. Always good to chat about Bitcoin and Lightning and like the Lightning gaming space, which I know you are big in.
yeah. It's we decided to do a niche of a niche podcast to talk about gaming and lightning. If Bitcoin isn't niche enough, we go lightning, and if lightning isn't niche enough, we go lightning gaming. But
Lightning gaming, yeah, it's another level.
yeah, it's niche now, but hopefully, this is what brings Bitcoin mainstream, or at least helps along the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Anyway, just hello to the audience. For those who don't know, this is Lightning Lap. It's the show where we talk about Bitcoin gaming and get our host to do a lap around Satoshi Village. But more on that later. My very special guest today is I'm very excited, and I know I always say I'm very excited, but today I am actually very excited. We have the famous, I would say, Stephan Livera. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks for having me. Yeah.
just before I start, I just want to remind you of a little anecdote. I think when we first met in Japan, I don't know if you remember this, but I think a lot of people got a little bit drunk and some people bailed out, but there were three of us and we headed to karaoke.
Yes, you, me, and Teriko.
Teriko, yeah, you remember well. I just thought when we went there, I decided to sing a song especially for you, knowing that you have like an Austrian background and libertarian principles. I thought, I'm going to sing "The Taxman" by the Beatles. But
Yeah, great song. Because the context of that song was like I think they were so pissed off about tax, and so they were like, this is like a tax protest song, you know?
yeah, yeah, it was. I was surprised because like most Bitcoiners don't know about it, but I thought like it would be like the one of the Bitcoin theme tunes. But yeah, you're right. I think the Beatles. I think they wrote it because they were like the official tax was like 95% suddenly, but they had to pay back
Yeah,
taxes, so it ended up being
yeah,
like
yeah.
105% or something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the full context of it, but as a libertarian, I can certainly appreciate the desire to rage against the taxes, and certainly I appreciate that. So, and I mean, I kind of knew of that story, so it was one of those ones that had been floating around, and obviously the Beatles, very famous band, so you kind of, yeah, it's a cool story.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a list of kind of Bitcoin songs together for when we can all meet up again. So we got like "Money"
You
by
could
like
have Eric Priest pump it up. You know that? Don't you know? Pump it up.
no,
You
yeah,
got to.
I know that one. Okay, yeah, "Pump It Up." Yeah.
But there's what about that other one? Do you remember? This is like an OG song. It's you know, I have been holding for the longest time. Whoa,
No,
for the
I'm not.
longest time. Zao Tongs. That's it. Zao Tongs. They
Okay.
did their own parody version of it. So that was incredible. That's back from like I think 2013 or 14. It was like
Really?
a real OG kind of parody song.
I'm
Really
on.
good one. It's on YouTube. If you
Was that
search
like a
Zao
Bitcoin
Tongs
song?
holding.
Was that a Bitcoin?
Huh?
Well, it wasn't a Bitcoin song. It was a normal song, but somebody did like a Bitcoin version. Yeah.
Someone made like a parody song and turned it into a Bitcoin song about hodling, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
I think,
yeah.
and it might have even predated the hodling term. So it was actually about holding, not hodling.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
maybe because I don't know if it's true, but when I was in Tokyo, I met a guy who was a little bit drunk, but he claimed to have made the HODL word. He would that was his thing at the Tokyo Bitcoin
right.
meetup. He said that he was a guy who kind of got drunk and misspelt it. But
Oh, okay. I mean, I guess it's hard to prove these things. Maybe he would have to go back and prove that he owns that forum NIM at least.
yeah, it could
But
be because
I
like
heard that guy turned into a bee catcher though.
well,
The guy who coined the term that we now use, hodl, that guy turned into a bee catcher.
that makes sense. That gives evidence to his theory because that was the Bitcoin Tokyo meetup, which was run by Roger Ver, and he told me this before
Right,
like Bitcoin Cash existed. So that whole meetup
right.
kind of that meetup died, and they all went to a Bitcoin Cash meetup.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that makes sense. But he was a little bit angry that like because a lot of people were making T-shirts and stuff, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and like he like didn't cash in on it or something. He should have trademarked it. I don't know.
Well, it's a costly error, you know. I just got reminded some more Bitcoin songs. There's as Giacomo Zicco might say that Britney Spears, "Toxic." or System of a Down, Toxicity. You know the
Sure.
toxicity of our city. You know that one?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That one.
good
Yeah.
Bitcoin ones.
Like there's
Um,
Money by like Pink Floyd, right? I guess I'm kind of like a classic rock guy, so all my knowledge of music is like pre 1979 or something.
right. Yeah,
So
yeah. The old school 70s rock and stuff like that.
a lot of
Yeah.
rap music though, I
You,
think.
you're into like Iron Maiden and things like that.
Actually, that's more heavy metal. I've recently started to listen to Iron Maiden, but normally it's like Led Zeppelin and stuff. It's I guess like Stones and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
suppose.
yeah.
Yeah,
Led Zeppelin's pretty cool, man. I listened to a few of their songs. I can't remember them off the top of my head now, but
yeah,
certainly some really
yeah.
cool
No
songs
songs about money
in
though.
their catalog.
But like all those bands got hit by this tax in England, which I think is one of the reasons why they all went to America. I think that whole like breaking America. A lot of it
Yeah.
is for tax reasons. So
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like you go to where the frontier is because yeah, it's a bit high risk, but it's also massive opportunity there, and that's just like Bitcoin as well, and that's also like Bitcoin Lightning and Lightning Gaming, right? You're out on the frontier. It's high risk, but it's high reward too. Like there's a massive market out there. There's a lot of opportunity and a lot of things that whether you're a user or whether you are a developer or a builder, an entrepreneur in the space, there's so much opportunity to come in these next, 5, 10 years.
I think this kind of goes into a theory that I think a few people have had, but kind of like Bitcoin is like the punk rock or it is like the rock and roll
Yeah.
movement, right? Like you can't really start a band now and change the world, but um, you can kind of like I think it was David Bowie said I saw in an interview like he wouldn't be a musician now, he would like be a programmer or something. Because when he was young,
Yeah,
he wanted to
maybe.
like change society.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you know Coinshaw NZ, he's done a talk, and I believe this was Baltic Honey Badger 2019. So we're talking around September or October ish of 2019, and I think that was essentially the theme of his talk. It was like Bitcoin is punk rock. This is like it's a movement, right? It's not. Yes, it's technology. Yes, there's like politics and economics and stuff, but it's a movement. It's about people who care about their freedom and who care about not being censored in the way they want to use their money and save or spend. And so I really think it is that. And, people are starting to see it for that as well. Like if you look at Nick Carter's piece, A Most Peaceful Revolution, or other people, even Tim Draper's kid, I forgot his name. I think Adam Draper.
Yeah, Adam
I think he
Draper.
just recently tweeted out something saying, "Yeah, it's like, the internet is like the empire, and Bitcoin is part of the resistance. It's like you're part of the Rebel Alliance. It's like Star Wars, right? It's like if you're a Bitcoin person, you're on the rebel side. You're fighting for good against the forces of evil.
So if you're a Bitcoiner, you're a Jedi, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah." Well,
No,
maybe like the Jedi Masters are like the real, like they're like the leaders of people like developing and coding this out and making the tools for us to use. They're like the Jedi Masters, and a whole bunch of us are just like fighting in the revolution to like give everyone freedom over their money.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I think kind of I think not just like programmers are important, but like people like you and stuff also play a vital role, right? And I think kind of the community in a way is kind of what the program is programmed for, Um, but yeah, but having said that, it's like Bitcoin. There's not many other disciplines there's not many other things that encompass so many different disciplines, right? It kind of has technology, it has philosophy, it has economics, it has politics, it has all sorts. So, well, let's just start here. Like, so, what was your introduction to Bitcoin? Because you were like correct me if I'm wrong, but you were like a traditional finance guy. Was it PwC or something you worked for? Or?
Yeah, so I used to work in Big Four accounting. That was how I started. So in Australia, I'm a chartered accountant, which is equivalent to like US CPA, and I think in the UK it's also called chartered
Yeah.
accountant. And so that was my career. Like my normie career was doing chartered accounting stuff, and so I was doing kind of like internal audit and similar related risks sort of work inside companies and big banks and things. So I was at Deloitte and big banks like Commonwealth Bank of Australia, which is Australia's biggest bank back then. And so I like, I guess the thing is, I was always interested on the side in terms of Austrian economics and libertarianism, right? So it
Okay.
wasn't really a professional interest that brought me into Bitcoin. It was my side interest that did. But it's just that I had some experience from inside the beast because I'd been inside the banking world and I have some exposure to that and what it looks like inside that banking world. So for me, it's like most people, it was more like my second or third touch point, right? So I think my first touch point was like some Slashdot article, right? And I kind of saw it and just
So
like, oh
you were
yeah,
like the
whatever, Bitcoin. I didn't
stormtrooper.
really understand the implication of it, you know?
I was
And
gonna-
so then the thing that made me like have my kind of sit up my orange pill moment was actually an Eric Voorhees article from, and now I was reading this in December 2012.
Wow, pretty
So
early.
I was
Would
in
you?
like the back of a car on a family holiday back in Sri Lanka, and I was just like scrolling, and I saw this article, and it just hit me. It was just like, wow, this thing could really. It just has these special characteristics, and I think the way Eric Voorhees. Obviously, I have my disagreements with Eric Voorhees nowadays, but still, like he was the one who basically put me onto this back then. And so then, like most people, I started my rabbit hole journey. Then I was like hungry for Bitcoin content. I was trying to find articles and read about it and learn about it. And obviously, one of the early people, is someone like Andreas Antonopoulos, right? There were like YouTube videos and things like that. So I was watching some of Andreas, and obviously, I already had a lot of the Austrian kind of background. So I
Hmm.
was already very much like anti central banking and pro free market money. It was just that I sensed that it was mostly hopeless until I saw Bitcoin and was, explained and was learning a little bit more about why Bitcoin might work where previously other things have failed. And so then 2013 was kind of my journey, and I, was periodically writing a few posts here and there, but I wasn't like doing anything that kind of became famous in the community. But I was kind of chatting in the background with people like Pierre Rochard and Michael Goldstein and stuff like that, and I was interacting with Pierre on Twitter and things like that. So that was like my early exposure to this stuff. And so I was following, Nakamoto Institute and just already supplementing with my own understanding from reading Austrian economics and things like that. That was where the significance of it came through for me, really. So it was more like a side interest, but I was, if you will, primed because I was already a fan of Austrian economics, a fan of the free market, anti central banking, and I was already a bit more of a tech savvy person, right? I played games growing up. I had studied information systems at uni in addition to accounting and finance stuff, and I was already a free market guy. So in some ways, I kind of hit the right markers or things that primed me to see Bitcoin for what it is. And so that was what gave me a huge advantage in understanding it a bit earlier than like I think most people did, because a lot of people were thinking of it purely as like, oh, it's only payments or it's only this, that, or the other. And then a lot of people got confused and went into like random altcoins. And for me, it was just never, I was never really like into altcoins. Like I just basically saw Bitcoin. I was like, oh, this is amazing. And there were times where, as you probably know, back in those days, there were all these different coins, like whatever, Aurora coin and
Yeah,
PP coin and name coin and colored
yeah.
coins. And I mean, there were so many of these altcoins,
I
and
made a
I
few.
never really found them interesting.
Yeah,
Huh?
I made a few tokens back in the day.
Yeah, right, right. And I know people tried out things like Counterparty, and
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there was all these different things back then. But I just never, I guess, like I had heard, oh, Prime coin. Maybe we'll have a coin that comes up with prime numbers. But I never even like bought that stuff or minded. I basically just got into Bitcoin and only Bitcoin, and I've been only Bitcoin the whole way. And so I guess I have a different journey to most people compared to most people, because a lot of people have that journey where they went the scenic route through the shit coins, and then they came back to realizing where Bitcoin was the value. Whereas my journey was a little bit more. I was reading more like Nakamoto Institute and people like Peter Serta, Tuur Demeester, Conrad Graf. Um, Even Safety wasn't around in those days, right? He
Hmm.
sort of came around a couple of years later. And then so I was chatting with Safety in the background as well, because I was kind of networking in the background with people like Pierre and stuff. And so yeah, so essentially that was how I kind of came into the space. I think at the time, the rhetoric and the narrative was more anti-bank in general, as opposed to being anti-central bank. So my view is Bitcoin challenges central banks much, much more than it challenges just banking. I see a
Sure.
role for banking. It's just that we have to reimagine that role of banking, right? In
Yeah,
Bitcoin, we
something
say
like
you be your own bank, right? You run your own Bitcoin node and blah, blah, blah. But you might still use a service provider, right? So like it could be like the Unchained capital model, the hybrid sort of model, or it
like
might be more
Strike or
like a
something.
family or community node sort of model where maybe you run your node for your family and they all kind of onboard to your bank and you are the banker for your family and your close friends maybe. And so I think that's kind of the model that we have to reimagine. But that's, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
like there's
remember,
so many.
just to kind of
Yeah.
rip on that a little bit. I remember, I think it was Peter Weller I was speaking to once, and he was kind of drawing the whole scaling debate and everything. And he said something that was quite interesting. He said this isn't what he
Mm.
wanted. It's not an ideal situation, but he would prefer like a Bitcoin where it's expensive to send, but everybody could like validate the institutions that use it, rather than a Bitcoin that's easy to send but nobody knows what's going on, kind of thing.
Of
So
course.
I kind of
Yeah.
think that was like an interesting point, and that kind of comes down to like I think if Bitcoin, obviously, the more people who run nodes and can manage their node and their keys, the better. But obviously, not a lot of people aren't going to be able to do that. So if there's going to be different layers of trust, like you said, there's like a family bank, or maybe there's just a reputable institution where they have like some sort of open accounting system with Bitcoin. I think it's still a better world. But yeah, but you said quite a lot there was quite interesting. Something that I found quite interesting is that so you were already kind of like an Austrian economics guy whilst working in mainstream finance. But what made you like the Austrian economics guy? Like, did you have a moment? Was your family always like Austrian inclined, or did you have like a light bulb
Yeah,
moment,
so
or
the
did it just
funny
like
thing is, so like a lot of young boys, you spend a lot of time on the internet, right? And so for me, when I was like 14 or 15, I would go on IRC, Internet Relay Chat. Now, for people who are a bit younger, you might not know, but that's kind of like an OG internet chat thing, right?
yeah,
So when I was like 14, I was hanging out in funnily enough, an Australian politics channel. And this guy kept linking to Mises Daily articles, right? And I was like, what the hell? That's never going to work. Like anarcho-capitalism is not going to happen. And then like eventually it started to make a lot more sense to me than what I was learning in my high school economics and business studies and those kinds of courses. So it started to just make a lot more sense to me. And then that was where I started to go down the whole Austrian rabbit hole.
logic.
So yeah, so it just logically, it just made so much more sense. Like it just kind of clicked. It just was a much more correct paradigm to think about economics and what's the impact of a minimum wage or the impact of X, Y, and Z government interventions. You start to think of it from that point of view. And so that for me, I've been into Austrian economics, well, now over half my life, right? Like I'm in my early 30s now, and I was that started that process for me. So kind of around like 15-ish, I started like becoming more and more libertarian. And so then eh, like when you're a bit younger, you kind of read more articles, right? Like you might not be able to be able to digest a full 800-page book, but you start with articles and the smaller books, and then as you kind of get more into it, you graduate up to reading the full length books and economic treatises and things like that. And so that is essentially what informs my perspective. Like when I'm doing interviews or when I'm talking about things or writing, that informs my perspective about a lot of things, coming from a more free market perspective of trying to, yeah, essentially that informs my perspective.
Okay, yeah, so it's kind of like in a way you just got exposure to certain arguments. So I think a lot of the issue is people just never hear the Austrian argument, you know. Um
Yeah,
like like
exactly.
like I to be honest, we don't really like in England we don't really obviously general primary schools and high schools don't teach economics, but but if you ever watch the news or something, it would just be a given that the current monetary theory is the status quo. And I remember just I had a moment when it was actually in Australia, so we were actually in Sydney at the same time. It's surprising we never met because we kind of had our Bitcoin moment at the same time, but I guess we kind of miss each other. But I remember there was a guy who he just said something like uh inflation is a tax on savings or something, and something
Yeah.
like that. And it's like it is a tax on savings. Like why am I saving? Kind of things like little things. We just have to question the mainstream. Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
It just takes a bit of learning. And I think that's part of what we're doing with these podcasts and articles and online and social media is that we're doing an end run around the typical top down ways of learning, right? Like in school, they have a curriculum and they've got a certain top down thing where they teach you the Keynesian stuff or the monetarist stuff or the otherwise interventionist stuff. Where do you actually learn the truth? Where do you actually go and
I
learn
think
that? Well, sometimes you got to go and find it for yourself.
a
And
lot of
that's
it is
where,
when you.
yeah.
I was gonna say a lot of it. I think is when you actually start paying tax, and what you kind
Yeah.
of like. My first job was actually in Sydney, Australia. Like my first real job, And normally when you get a pay slip in a company, the tax is kind of it's hidden from you. You don't really see it. But my boss, who was actually he used to be a labor man. He was a quite socialist thinking, but until he started to run a business. And every day he'd give us the paychecks, which in Australia you get paid like every 2 weeks, which is a bit different to the rest of the world. Every day he would give it us, he would say, "This is what I'm paying you. This is what you're getting. This is going to the government." And that actually, I think a lot of people don't see that, but once you start to see kind of tax you pay, I think that is also an educational moment for a lot of people.
Oh, of course, 100%. I had the same phenomenon in terms of obviously I was libertarian, but for many of my friends from university, many of them were lefty type people. But then once they started like earning real money and paying taxes, that was when they started like now they didn't all become libertarians,
Sure,
but they
bit
at
more
least they
conservative
started
in
to
a
have
way.
more of an
Yeah,
appreciation for this idea of, hey, why are taxes so high? Why are we paying this much? You know,
yeah, yeah.
so
Speaking to my grandfather, he used to tell me that when he started to work, he used to go on holiday off of the interest of his general savings account. And just
yeah.
like he used to tell young people that you can go on holiday off the interest of your just normal banking account. It would be like it sounds
Yeah,
foreign,
I
right?
mean,
It's
even when I
crazy.
was a kid, like that used to be a thing. It used to be kind of they would teach you because this was back before interest rates were basically zero, and you actually used to get a return from that. And funnily enough, I think it kind of robbed people of the joy of saving and seeing it grow
Mm. Yeah,
because you kind of I think for me, I was one of those people like even from a young age, I started working at like 14 years and 8 months, and I was always a bit more of a saver, right? Like I would buy and I would save. So I think my story is probably a bit atypical, right? Whereas a lot of people come into Bitcoin and then they start to think more about saving because now they're in this um, environment where I think historically, or at least like when we were younger, when we were kids, it used to be more like, hey, you save up in the bank account and you get some interest. And
yep,
that used to be a really cool motivation factor for me because I used to feel like, yeah, I'm like
yeah.
saving and
It's all about
I'm getting
incentives,
more
right?
wealth, and
Yeah,
whereas now people are being robbed of that in some sense because if you leave your money in the fiat bank account, you're losing 10-15% per year easily.
crazy.
And
Yeah.
so in terms of purchasing power, right? So um, that is another thing that I think Bitcoin changes for people, and hopefully people will start to appreciate that more once they can start to really truly save using Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, I think it's obviously like I should give a disclaimer. Obviously Bitcoin is a risky asset. Don't put more than you're willing to lose, etc., etc. But I think for most people, if you work a normal job and you have a little bit of cash money, there's nowhere to put that, right? You're kind of not an accredited investor. You can't invest it in assets or stocks. The best you can do is maybe try and get on the housing market. But I guess Bitcoin is, that accessible asset that anybody, kind of, you know, preserve some of their wealth. It's actually quite interesting. So we Mint Gox, this monthly esports event we do. We started it almost a year ago, the first one in March, and people have basically played games. They've competed in esports competitions and they've earned some Bitcoin. And the ones that have saved that are doing a lot better now since the Bitcoin price. So
Hey, they would have gone like 10x.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. It's just kind of, but just that feeling of like you've got something, you've saved it, and it's worth more, right? It's kind of and through gaming as well, right? It's and a lot of these people are kids from we don't know exactly where they're from, but they're people from more poorer countries who've just got like an internet connection and they can just about play. So I think it's quite a interesting kind of a dynamic there. Um, so what? So we were. I was in Sydney. When we're live, I believe we are back again.
Yep. Okay, cool.
Yeah, sorry about that, folks. We just had an issue with the stream cutting out. Anyway, Stefan was just telling us about how Bitcoin is in Australia. So yeah, it's quite interesting. Like when I was in Australia, I kind of got the impression that Australians are quite back again.
Yep.
Australians are kind of quite. I think they're quite down to earth people. They tend to generally have like a good kind of like bullshit detector, and tend to be a little bit anti-authority. Do you think that's fair to say historically? But then you kind of
yes. I think nowadays, well, given all the way how quickly people folded for all this Hysteria 19 stuff, I think that's like it's like a historical artifact of Australian culture where there used to be kind of this idea of like Ned Kelly and Paul Hogan
Kelly,
and
sure.
kind of famous Australian rebel characters and larrikins and people like that. I think certainly that's kind of the international perspective people have of like this kind of easygoing country where people are not afraid to have a laugh and laugh at themselves and laugh about things and kind of take what's called a she'll be right attitude to things. That's certainly what it was when I was growing up. But I think we were kind of on this big down where people externally view us that way, and maybe the Australians you meet when they're traveling, in non-hysteria times, those are the ones where they'll be more kind of they'll exaggerate those elements of their personality, right? Like they're kind of joke they're very jocular, or they like to joke a lot. They they don't take themselves too seriously, and I think for the most part that's still there. But I think it certainly, I think there's kind of like a marketing angle, right? Every country is a brand, right?
Sure.
Every country has their
I'm
own
a
kind of
gentleman,
marketing.
apparently.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of the thing. But yeah, certainly growing up, it was very much like that. It was very much like people love to, this whole idea of the larrikin culture, like the people who are like
Is that what you say?
rebels.
The term "happy as Larry" comes from,
happy
I think.
go lucky or whatever. Yeah. Oh,
happy
the
as
lucky
Larry.
Country, right?
I think we have I don't know. We have a term in England, but we say I'm as happy as Larry. I think you have it in Australia.
Right.
I think that comes from the larrikins. But what are the larrikins? I've heard it said, but I'm not too sure who they are. It might be quite interesting. I don't think anybody outside of Australia knows about them.
Fun-loving. It's meant to be kind of like I guess I haven't really thought about it, but I guess if I had to define it, it's kind of like a fun-loving rogue trickster fun person. So they don't necessarily obey all the rules, but they're there to kind of. They generally are the kinds of person, think sort of like a class clown character,
like a rogue,
right? Sort
maybe?
of like. Yeah, there's some level of like rogue and some level of outlaw or rebel.
A larrikin, according to the dictionary, is Australian and New Zealand a term for a boisterous, often badly behaved young man, a person with apparent disregard for convention, a maverick.
Yeah. 100% that. Yeah. So I think that is very much what the Australian culture is idealized as in some ways, right? That's a brand of Australia, right? Like we produce men who are like that, like in some sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think things change over time, and I think that culture is sort of going a bit. But we'll see what happens. Maybe in the next few years Australia can rekindle that kind of brand and image, if you will. But I think for now it seems to me more like an outward image that is projected than a reality.
I think it's kind of interesting times, right? So all these kind of old stereotypes and things start to break away. Like I used to live in Japan, and I went back to England, and one of my thoughts was that I kind of saw Japan as quite it's a great place, but it's quite kind of strict, right? It's kind of in a way, it's really, I'm going to offend a lot of people saying this, but it's a little bit like North Korea that was invaded by the Americans and kind of forced to open up. It was a hermit state. It had like a kind of dictatorship kind of thing going on. And it's kind of forced to open up, but that culture of kind of strict and follow the rules has kind of always been there. And then ironically in England, which I thought was like this freedom, loving, a lot of, the kind of Anglosphere, like liberty and all this kind of stuff. I'm locked in my house in England, not allowed to meet my family, where all my friends in Japan are going out drinking. It's kind of weird how like all my
Yeah.
assumptions were completely wrong. So, but yeah, I guess it's 2021, right? We have Bitcoin is at like 30, 40,000. The world is a strange place. you
Yeah,
know,
things are kind of topsy-turvy and things are changing, you know? What countries became known for, they don't necessarily stay that way.
I
And
think,
so,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think in a way, like people, in a way, they don't kind of so what they don't symbolize themselves as they don't relate to their country as much anymore. They relate to maybe their, probably their internet groups. What forums
Yeah,
are you in? Like what
and I
chats,
think
what
to some
spheres? That's
extent
probably where
culture
your
is going a bit more
nationality is.
global as well. You
Okay,
know, like because everyone's plugged into the same,
yeah,
Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and whatever other platforms or Discord or whatever. I know the gaming people go
yeah,
on.
we're on Discord.
They're kind of more plugged into those spheres, and so I think growing up, it might have been like there was probably 4 or 5 channels that most people were watching, and there was kind of a shared cultural knowledge of those jokes or those shows on Seinfeld or Simpsons or How I Met Your Mother and whatever shows that like everyone was watching, and it's kind of
Mm,
changing over time. So
yeah.
I think it's kind of splintering off a little bit, but in some ways, it's a good thing that people can go do their own thing. They find their own interest. But in other ways, maybe there's less of a shared cultural similarity
There was a
around it
time where
now.
everybody watched the same show. And we have that now. There are like some big shows that come out, but now it's like, what are you watching on Netflix? I'm watching this. Oh, I haven't. Is that? I haven't watched that one. I'm watching this one. No, I haven't watched that one. you kind of
Yeah,
so you kind
yeah,
of it's quite an interesting time, I suppose. Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. But this is a gaming podcast. I know, like you're not famous for being a gamer, but I'm sure you must have had a gaming moment when you were young. Do you have like a game
Oh,
you
of course.
liked or any
Yeah, I mean, I
yeah?
played lots of games as a kid. Like
Okay,
I would
cool.
play Counter Strike,
Oh,
StarCraft, all kinds of real time strategy games. I played some of those games like Diablo and similar kinds of games. I was never like awesome at them, right? But I was probably okay at Counter Strike amongst my group of friends, and I was like
cool.
decent at it back then. Um, I What else did I play? Some of those more role playing kind of games and things like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic and Star Wars games like Rogue Squadron and Jedi Knight and yeah, a bunch of games like that. What else did I play? Like Halo on Xbox One,
Well, I
like the
think
first Xbox.
Counter Strike
Um,
is quite a kind of interesting one you brought up because at the next Mint Gox we're having the second Counter Strike Bitcoin competition. So
nice,
I'm not sure if
nice. I mean,
you're
yeah.
well, like I'm
Oh, well,
not.
I mean, yeah, but maybe I'd play it, but I mean, honestly, like my reflexes and like my skill at Counter Strike nowadays would just be
It's
horrible, right? Like
insane.
I
Oh,
don't
it's
think I'd be
insane how
competitive
good
at
some
all,
people are.
you know?
Actually, well, um, the company I work for, Zebedee, we've actually integrated Bitcoin into Counter Strike. So this is the kind of thing we're rolling out. We're rolling out kind of public Counter Strike servers where you can earn Bitcoin over Lightning. So we're going to have
Yeah,
like a range of different servers, more like noob friendly servers where it's like
right. Yeah,
sponsored
yeah.
by, an exchange or something. So everybody kind of wins, but if you're better, you win more.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. I mean,
maybe we can have you in one
uh
of those.
there's like the whole pub thing, pub level games, and then there's like actual, clans or whatever level games where there's like more let's call it like semi pro or kind of more serious people who take it more seriously. And then obviously the pro level, which is just like, well, yeah, well above. But I mean, every now and again, when I was a bit like maybe in my 20s, we would play some games like just with friends as well, like play some StarCraft together or play some Counter Strike together or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I have played Counter Strike Go as well. I have played Counter Strike
Oh, so you're
CS:GO.
playing 1.6 before?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
played a lot of 1.6,
Okay.
and then later I played the new one as well. The current one.
Yes, CS:GO. Oh.
But that yeah, last time I played, yeah, and I used to play a lot of Team Fortress 2 as well. That was a really
Uh,
fun game. That was really fun. One of those like online games where you're kind of collaborating with the team. So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of fun as well. Um, what else? Age of Empires. I think I played 3, maybe.
I played that for the
Yeah.
first time actually. So we have like a game night with our company. So and yeah, I played Age of Empires for the first time, and I had no. I just got. I was I had like three people and a sheep, and then like a horde of army just came and killed. I had no idea what to do there. It's-
Yeah, yeah. I mean, during like lockdowns and stuff, I sort of got a little bit back into gaming. I played a little bit of games here and there. Like I played a little bit of Civilization 6, and I was also playing XCOM as
I don't know
well.
that one.
It's kind of like a turn-based strategy combat sort of game. So I mean, I've played games, but I wouldn't, yeah, certainly I wouldn't say I'm a hardcore gamer, but like occasionally I would play some of these games.
Yeah, I think it's just
Um,
like I think in a way, kind of. I think before, go back 10, 20 years in a way. If you played games, it was a bit special, and you were a gamer. But now it's like watching a movie almost. Like you're no longer a
yeah,
geek or a
it's like
gamer if
this
you play a
casual
game.
level, you know.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
casual
exactly.
stuff. Yeah, I think
It's
it's.
kind of oh, I know that's the thing in gaming. They say, "Oh, filthy casuals," right? That's the thing. Eh?
I haven't actually heard that, but I can imagine that being said. There's like a lot of interesting terms, but I kind of think during lockdown, a lot of people are like using games just to keep in touch, which is one of the reasons why we did Mint Gox is because all the conferences got cancelled, right? So we kind of had an
Yeah,
online conference. Well, what can you do online? We can all kind of just talk to each other on like a big Google Hangout, or we can just like jump into CS:GO or jump into like a virtual world. And you're kind of seeing this, I suppose, not necessarily with games, but also just like digital, like VR kind of spaces. And it's a bit rough around the edges, but it's interesting. Kind of, I think as the technology
yeah.
gets better, it's
Yeah, the
like
collaborative games are really cool, right? Like if you play like yeah, this is again going back probably 5 years now, I don't know how long, but stuff like Left 4 Dead 2, right? In like a group where you're playing with like four people and like you're trying to collaborate on how to kill the zombies and whatever. And it's just kind of like a fun way. So yeah, I mean that's a pretty cool thing to do just to kind of stay in touch with people. I know people do like I mean, I don't know any of the current games. I know there's like Overwatch and things like that. I only kind of loosely see these games now because I don't really play them actively myself, but I kind of see them come up and stuff. I
yeah,
know the whole Fortnite and that style of game now, PUBG and whatever, is also quite popular. Battle Royale style games is quite a popular thing amongst young, like
yeah. I
teenagers
think
and kind of younger people.
indie games are quite popular as well, though. There's this game that I think I'm sure you heard of, Among Us, which just came out of nowhere. Apparently, it'd been
Yeah, I've
around for
heard
a
of it. Yeah,
while,
yeah,
but it kind of went viral, right? And it's never been easier to make a game, right? Like a kid by himself, actually, or a small team can kind of make up these viral games. So, yeah,
yeah,
my
for
mission
sure.
is to kind of put Bitcoin in these games and try to kind of link the two. I think it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
You have well,
Yeah,
kind of
for
Bitcoin
sure,
in
and
a
I
way
think it
is
could be a
made for
great
gaming.
orange pill moment, It could be the first because a lot of these people, they would have heard of Bitcoin in 2017, they might not have gone to the level of buying some, but if they can earn a small amount in a game and then
Yeah, it's
start
risk free.
going down the rabbit hole from there, that could be a cool thing and way to kinda get people in as well.
Yeah, I think Donna Labs, who I'm not sure if you've interviewed them before, but
No, I
Constantine.
think I've met the guys though, yeah, back at
Yeah,
the Lightning conference in
yes.
2019.
So they have like a cool game, which is like a first person shooter game, and like they do a really cool thing with advertisers, where the advertiser can basically just pay to add the ad like at any time. So I think Marty Bent has an ad in there from his
He does some
podcast.
Tales from the Crypt. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I tried to go in there one time and I was like, "Oh, I'd do it," but I couldn't be bothered like resizing the image. I don't know.
sure,
Maybe
sure.
that's lazy, but I should go back and try it when if I get a chance
Oh,
to
you definitely
go
should.
there and just yeah,
It's
because I
just
mean,
like
I've got obviously got Lightning wallets and whatever. I'm happy to do it, but it's just like,
yeah,
oh, got to
yeah,
resize this image and do these
sure.
other things and fiddle and everything else going on. But
You're a busy
it
man.
is certainly cool. The whole was it Bitcoin bounty hunt
Yeah,
and that other one, the Light Night guys, they're trying
yeah,
to do the
Light Night,
yeah.
Satoshi's Games kind of thing. Yeah, I just kind of think if you're like a Bitcoin company and want to promote yourselves, it's so easy just to like an ad campaign, and then it's a great way to introduce people into Bitcoin, right? Like people kind of play games and like get digital coins anyway, and now they just get something that it's Bitcoin, right? They, they can use it in another game, or they can um 2021 is like the year of exchanges, so perhaps they get that Bitcoin and it's like they can, if they want to, they can liquidate it on exchange instantly to help pay for their rent or something. um yeah, it's definitely quite interesting. um Talking about games, this is actually why we've got you on. um
All right.
So for our viewers, you might just want to retweet on Twitter. I think we lost a few people on when the stream went, so maybe retweet, because now we're actually going to do the segment where we actually developed a game that we use for our Mintgox esports events, and Stephan is just going to compete in it. The game we made is called Bitcoin Rally. It's pretty much Mario Kart with Bitcoin, and every month we do these Mintgox events. So the next event is on January the 31st. You can actually just jump in a game and play online against other players, and you can win Bitcoin, basically. It doesn't cost anything to play. You just race around the track, race other people, and there's Satoshi awards for coins you collect and larger prizes based on your position. However, we've done a special segment called Lightning Lap, where we get famous Bitcoiners around the world to do like a fast lap time around our track. And we rank them to see, how fast they're going. So this is the third episode of Lightning Lap. So we've had a few people so far. I'm just going to try and share my browser here. That loads. Yeah. So we can see at the moment we have Nicolas Dorier. He is the fastest with 50.766 seconds. Crypto Mags from Canada, 67.589 seconds. Brad Mills from Canada, 75. We were meant to have Peter Todd, but Peter Todd had a very strange flavor of Linux, let's just say, that just didn't didn't do 3D or something. It was very difficult. So he was supporting Mags and Brad Mills, and we also have No Coiner Ned. So No Coiner Ned is my No Coiner friend. I just got to do the first lap. So all our Bitcoiners have to at least beat No Coiner Ned, who got 76.3 seconds.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah, so Stephan has been practicing, so I'm just bring that hangout. So we're just actually gonna try that out. I'm just going to message you the password again.
Yep.
Just
cool.
in case you
so I go into free match or tournament online.
Yeah, hold on. Let me just change my streams here. I'm gonna get the game open.
Okay, cool.
Let's see in a second. Give me. There we go. So, yeah, if you just wait on the free match, a game should show up.
Okay.
Okay, obviously it's like there. So I'm going to make a game now. Okay.
Oh, wait. Yeah, continue. And I go to Europe, right?
Yeah. There's no Australian server.
That's right, the Australian server. Okay, so I'm on the Europe thing.
Yeah, just wait there. A game should crop up in a second. And hopefully the audio is not too loud for people. If it is too loud, let me know and I can adjust that, but I think we're okay. I'll just make it a little bit quieter just in case. That's one of the most difficult things about podcasting, is just adjusting the audios.
Yeah.
We're good. Okay. So yeah, the game should appear for you. If you just need to click on it and type in the password. Yep.
Okay, and the password?
I sent it you on Twitter.
Okay, gotcha.
It's the same as last time, if you remember that.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah.
Yep, so if you want to play this game yourself, you can, as I mentioned before, you can join us at the next Mintgox and play online. But Stephan's just going to do a solo at the moment for you.
Okay. Are we good? Good to go?
Yeah, did you join? Or?
Yep, I'm in. Do you want me to start?
Yeah. I don't know.
Going now.
Yeah, there we go. I can see it coming through. There we go. Stephan Livera.
Yeah.
Okay. You ready? Shall we go?
All right, here we go.
Prepared?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it. I'm ready. So they're like, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So Stephan can collect coins on this, and the coins he can actually withdraw. Each coin is about 100 satoshis, I think. But I can't remember.
Nice.
10. So you can actually withdraw them.
100 stats, I think.
There we go.
Oh, whoa, what's going on? It's so slow. All right.
Yeah, I think you didn't do the boost. It's okay. Generally, the first lap is not going to be your fastest lap because you're starting from zero, right? So it's like your second or
Yeah,
third
yeah.
lap. So the first lap is like a practice. And the second lap, you'll be going across the start line with speed already. So
With some good speed to get
Yeah.
going. There we go. Got a good turn that time.
Oh, nice corner. Pretty good so far. Here's the thing: do you get the coins and slow down your speed though? Probably not.
Nah, it's all about winning.
We actually had a player who was playing this where they were last place, so they just went around collecting all the coins the wrong way. Like, there's no incentive to cross the finish line at some point. Just get all the Bitcoin. Hey, this is pretty good. Okay, second one. This is one that counts.
Here we go. All right, it's on.
Keeping it tight. Nice. Very good. Pretty good racing lines. Well, that was
Lost a
good.
bit of speed,
That was
but it's
okay
all
though.
right.
Didn't
It's
you
good.
just? It could have been a lot worse. You could have hit it and slowed down, but that was good. Okay. Tight. Going around the 180s.
Yeah, the hairpins are hard, but
Yeah.
that's part of the game.
There is a cow that might randomly appear as well. We've noticed.
Oh, yeah, that's not good.
Good, but it's all right. We got another lap.
Yeah, one last lap to do it. Make it happen. Gotta stay on the inside there so you don't get airtime and lose acceleration time and grip.
Exactly.
Oh, that could have been bad, but it was all right. Let's do this.
Try not to talk too much because I want you to focus. I want you to do well.
All right, we're on a good track so far.
Yeah. Don't jinx it.
Oh, good corner there. Let's bring it home.
Okay, the hardest part is done now. There's some...
Oh, damn it, that screwed it up. If I could have nailed that last bit there.
And across the
There we
finish
go.
line. Okay, that was good. Yeah, yeah, maybe. Let me just take a look at the scores.
Yeah. Oh well, that's how the game goes. It's all right. I think I still got probably in the low 50s. Oh sweet, there's an LN URL. I got to do that as well.
Yeah, you got scanned. Okay, I'm looking at your scores, and I've got your scores now. Okay, don't worry. We can have you back on later to try and beat your score if you're not happy with it. I think we're gonna do that once people get toppled. People are gonna come on. Okay.
Come back on and reclaim the throne.
That was pretty good though. It's definitely not the worst. I can say that. Okay, so
yeah, I'm gonna guess. I came somewhere around 51, 52-ish. Is probably my best time there, but not my best showing.
I need to. At the moment, I'm just gonna add it into the database. See it on the leaderboard. Okay. So, do you have a link to the leaderboard? Oh, maybe I should send that to you so you can have a look. I'll send it to you on Twitter so you can have a look in real time. And I'm going to share it with our viewers.
Oh yeah, mintgox.com/lightninglap.
Okay, so we can see that Nicolas Dorier is top with 50. Mags is. Do you think you were better than Mags at 67?
Yeah, easily better than Mags.
Okay, so
not even close. Yeah, I reckon I'm somewhere like 51, 52-ish.
51, 52-ish. Okay.
Yeah.
Look. It should be updated now. There we go. 52.42 seconds. That's very good. Yeah. I think the first, like, maybe it's just Canadians can't drive or something, but I think the two guests we've had have basically thrashed the Canadians, so that's a bit of Commonwealth competition there.
That's right. Yeah, those Canadians got no idea, man.
Congratulations.
No practice. No.
We have to get a British and a South African playing now. So we got
Yeah. See how they go. See
Fluffy
how they go.
Pony and maybe Peter McCormick or something. He's trained. But that's pretty
Yeah, I
good.
can't imagine Peter McCormack would be good. Yeah,
Maybe, I don't know.
but
He
maybe
he
he'll
he has
surprise us.
kids,
Maybe
right? So
when
he
he comes
probably
on
has
the
to
show,
play.
he'll
He has
get
to
a
play
good
games with
time.
kids. So, but yeah, you beat No Coin Ned. So far, Brad Mills almost lost to No Coin Ned. But yeah, the No Coiners are losing. Um, Having said this, something that will annoy you is when we did the practice. We did a practice run before we went live, and
Yeah.
your score then, your best score then, was actually 49 seconds. 49.
Yes, I would have beat Nicola.
You
Yeah,
would
I
have beat
felt that as well.
Nicola.
I felt like, oh, I reckon I had a really good round this time. I probably got a 49.
Oh, yeah.
But it's all
Yeah,
good. That's how
season
the game
two.
goes,
We'll
right?
have you on season two, and hopefully, I might for season two. I might give people a few more laps to do just in case, average it out. But that was really good. Yeah, I think that's hard to beat. Yeah. So congratulations.
Awesome, man. Thanks.
So I'm just gonna finish up now. We got some questions from the audience.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm gonna read that. Okay, let me just go to my questions. Oh, we've got a few came through. Okay, so this is from Just a Thinker. I think we touched on this a little bit. But he said, "What is Stephan's view on the future of blockchain regulation in Australia?"
Yeah, so the main one applying right now is mostly the financial stuff, right? So it's AML, anti-money laundering laws, and reporting to AUSTRAC and so on, and collaborating with like whatever
Austrac,
Australian
you
government
like the
law
tax
enforcement
one?
and things like that. That's probably the main regulation that applies in the Australian sphere right now. In the early days, there was that whole double GST here in Australia in like 2013 and 14 days. That was like a big thing. But essentially, a lot of the blockchain Australia people are kind of more pushing more for like blockchainy things, and like some of the shit coins were basically pushing to try and not be recognized as a security, right? That was like their big thing because they knew if they got counted as a security, they would just get owned. So that was a big thing there. I would really like to see more, pushing and lobbying along the lines of things like, hey, like lower Bitcoin taxes and, make
Australia had
sure
a
it
famous
remains
GST tax
legal.
on Bitcoin, didn't they? That
Sorry?
the Australian government U-turned on. I think they added a tax on Bitcoin, and then they removed
So
it.
they turned it back.
Yeah,
Yeah, they turned it back. So that was down to some like advocacy and industry lobbying and stuff like that. So that's one good thing that happened here. So I think on the whole, it's not like it's about as good as you could reasonably hope for from like a big country that it's legal. There are certain CGT capital gains tax carve outs for people who want to buy and spend under $10,000. So there's like certain conditions about it. But basically, if you are intending to spend your Bitcoin and you buy a small piece to spend, then you won't pay a capital gain tax on that. So long as, I mean, check the rules and stuff, but basically it's like less than $10,000 worth, which you can do that. So that's actually a pretty good thing from the point of view of if you wanted to buy, things with Bitcoin in person and things like that, probably using
I used
Lightning.
to buy
But
McDonald's at St. Leonard's with Bitcoin with a Zappo card. Maybe that now it could be over $10,000 based on the rate.
So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, people use those cards and things to try and go around it. And obviously, there's like bitrefill.com and things like that where you can get
Mm,
vouchers and do it that way. But yeah, I think
yeah,
for the most part, it's like the regulation it's not as good as we could. It's not like ideal, but it's
you can do
reasonable
business.
compared to
People
most
can do
other
business.
countries around the world.
Yeah.
There is some level of strictness, and I guess the culture around. I would like to see more peer-to-peer Bitcoin be a thing here, but unfortunately, it just seems like it's very strongly enforced. So it kind of has to be all through exchanges and so on. So
But so
that's
like
yeah, from that angle, that's there.
peer-to-peer companies
But it remains to be
wouldn't be
seen.
allowed. Like a peer-to-peer, like a local Bitcoins type thing, wouldn't be allowed at all. Is what you're saying, or
So it's kind of like it is allowed, but basically if you were to do any serious kind of volume, or if you were to be treated as a business, then essentially you have to start doing all the AML, KYC, blah blah blah. Um, so then
mm,
any person who's like regularly selling and buying and selling would have to also now
yeah,
do all
just
the AML,
no points.
KYC,
They might,
check
yeah,
ID, and
yeah.
blah blah blah, right? And so that is a bit of a friction. It's a bit of a hurdle to like broader adoption and like really making it bigger. But at the same time, look, for the most part, people are just buying and holding. That doesn't really impact them
Yeah, I think a
that
lot of
much.
people are huddling until they get rich enough they can pay an accountant to to like not make them pay
Yeah,
capital gains. I don't know. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
or find like, or basically get to a point where they're kind of like, fine, I'll just pay it, whatever. Like, so
Yeah, yeah. Another question is, as a podcaster, who would you like to podcast that you interview? Who would you like to interview that you haven't interviewed yet? And what would you ask them?
ooh,
Is there anybody you're trying to
um,
get? Or
someone like Nick Szabo.
you haven't
He's
had him
like
on?
super hard to get.
Oh,
He's hard to
really?
get on a show, and I've been trying for years. But
Is
he'd
it,
be someone who I want to get on the show. Um,
what would you ask
I,
him? Or just
yeah, I just think I'd love to just kind of get his views
yeah,
on kind of like where we are at this point, and like, um, just kind of go over his views on like why he thinks, you know, like like so his view about like shelling out and how it's kind of like collectibles and like kind of his view on that compared to like an Austrian perspective, which I think it's still it's broadly aligned, right? There's not really any big conflict there, but I think it's interesting. I think it would just be interesting to hear him give his views on it. I
sure.
think also one concept of his that I really like is this whole idea of deep safety, right, versus shallow safety, and I'd love to kind of explore that a little bit more with him, um, and kind of his thoughts on smart contracting, so to speak, right?
Yeah,
Even though
because
I mean,
he
I know
kind of
in
invented
Lightning
the
we
term,
use
didn't
smart
he?
contracting, right?
Yeah.
But it's something that he historically spoke about a bit more, and I think that was seen like a Ethereum thing, right? Whereas now, really, we do actually use some kinds of smart contracting within the Lightning Network.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
like check lock time verify, CSV, and whatever.
There's DLCs as well that are kind of smart contracts. It's
Yeah, that's also a really cool direction as well to see all the DLC stuff. So I think that might be an interesting area to see what his views are on that. Um, Other people who would be good to interview, who are hard to get on, because I've obviously tried and been trying. Someone like Peter Weller, he's hard to get on a show. Um, who
yeah,
else?
I
Greg
remember.
Maxwell. Greg Maxwell would be
Yeah.
another one who'd be awesome to interview. But again, I think some of these guys, in fairness, I think maybe they want to kind of keep their head down and keep working on things and reviewing things and contributing, without necessarily going on a show. And so, but yeah, I think those would be some of the guys that kind of like who I'd really love to get, and I haven't had them on the show yet.
I
But
think
otherwise, I mean, I'm
you
pretty
have to
happy
kind
with
of
how the
get them in
show's
a room,
going.
don't you, really? And it's hard when you can't travel to like certain conferences and stuff. But
Yeah, of course, of course. In person is better, but obviously right now everything is just remote, and what can you do? You do what you can, and I'm obviously happy with how the show is going. Obviously I've had a lot of big names on the show, and
myself
happy
included,
to
was
just
your highlight
yeah.
moment, I must say.
Sorry, oh, my
Myself
highlight moment.
included. No, I was saying myself being on your show. That's just
Oh,
it was
of course, yeah.
was
When you were
obviously
on the show,
the pinnacle of
number one episode.
the.
Millions of downloads.
So, I actually have a question, which I shouldn't ask a question, but I'll pretend I'm the audience. And my brother actually wanted to ask the same question as well. And I was actually quite impressed. You got Niall Ferguson on your show, and
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that one. How did you get him? He's like this. He's like a Davos man. I think he's actually part of the Bilderberg group himself. So he's kind of very mainstream finance, but he's also a Bitcoiner in a way. And I think he kind of gets pulled by the blockchain crowd sometimes. But like, it's an interesting story. Did you just reach out to him? Does he have a publicist? Like, how did that happen?
yeah. So I mean, some of these are like I reached out to him. I had sent him an email like a while back, and it just wasn't the right time, and he just wasn't. He was like a bit busy and whatever. But then I like this recent time, maybe a month or two ago, I sent him another email just saying, "Oh, hey, you know, have you got time to come on the show now?" And he said yes. So we made it
Ooh,
happen, and I was very glad
there's
that
a
he did. And I
lockdown.
think it was a really good, interesting
Yeah.
chat with him. And obviously, he's not as like hardcore like free market, but he is broadly speaking kind of interested in the free market, and he's kind of more on the conservative side of things.
Yeah, he's
But
kind of
certainly, he has
known in England
really
for
interesting
that.
perspectives.
So
Sorry.
he was like an economic advisor to the previous Conservative government, and he's kind of been known a little bit as I used to watch his documentaries and read his books. So in a way, a lot of my thinking was because of his work. So I've kind of been following him a little bit. Um, but like a lot
Yeah,
of
for
these
sure.
people, it kind of seems like it's a bit frustrating because it's like they know about Bitcoin in 2013, even though it's 2021. It's like their knowledge of Bitcoin is like 2013 or something. Like they've just watched like that Bitcoin documentary on Netflix, and it's like, but there's all this. Yeah, like, obviously you want to tell them about Lightning and Taproot or something, all this kind of stuff, but it's gonna go over their heads.
It's
But
too much for them. Like,
yeah,
even in the interview, I was trying to tell him about Lightning Network, right? But he still
a,
hadn't
a
used
lot of
that as
his
much,
criticisms for like the payment is kind of slow and all this kind of expensive, like Lightning Network. But anyway, maybe we'll get there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a journey, and like for most people, until they've like they don't go and deep dive until they've really got a reason to, and I think it comes down to some basic things like fear, greed, you know, the necessity. I think those are really what drive people to actually go hard on Bitcoin. And so up until then, a lot of people just kind of go a bit more shallow, right? And so I think he's only just starting to kind of go a bit deeper into it. And so it's just a part of his journey. And I think, if anyone had asked you or me those questions in 2013 when we were just starting as well, we might not have given a very solid answer about them either. So,
Oh
I
yeah,
guess
yeah,
you've
for
got
sure.
to
It's interesting how things have
be
changed.
understanding that
Yeah, yeah.
people have different priorities, whereas you and me, obviously, Bitcoin and Lightning is all we do. It's everything we do. Whereas for other people, it's only one of many things they do.
I think just the Lightning Network itself is it's kind of it's a little bit sad, but I think it's also like I think it'll change. Just like nobody really knows about it outside of Bitcoin, right? People Bitcoin is kind of like it's like what's the word? A dinner table word. It's a household word now. Most people have heard about it, but Lightning Network is interesting. Will
They
it
haven't
stay
got
that
there
way?
yet.
Will people just use Bitcoin and not know it's a Lightning Network? And maybe that's the
Yeah, so
best way
this
to
is a
do it.
hard
Yeah,
one, right? Like
yeah,
the way I think of it, it's more like, look, I think most people are in here to hodl, right? They're buying and
sure.
hodling, and they're
Yeah,
not really planning to spend because they don't care about that. They
yeah.
just want to see the number go up and they want to hodl. But eventually, right? Eventually, once they've got a big enough stack and they are either all in or close to all in, or they only earn Bitcoin, at that point, now they're thinking about spending. And at that point, yeah, it's just that that's a much smaller percentage of the Bitcoin
Somebody
economy.
buys,
And
somebody
so,
sells, right? Somebody.
yeah,
So yeah,
right, right. But I think that's where this next round of things coming, right? The folds, the lollies, the strikes, and like the lightning gaming are like another way for people to get started, even in a small way. And
yeah.
then once they get started in a small way, then maybe we'll see it come from that too. But
We hope
I
so.
just yeah, we'll see. It's kind of like I think over this next year or two, we'll see. I think I think everyone kind of feels it. We're in this big bull run right now. We're at the start of a big bull run, I think. So I think as that plays out, as we start to see the on-chain fees rise, then we'll see more people care about using Lightning, and then kind of
I
the
think
whole
people
Lightning.
tend to jump to the conclusion that is like Lightning is kind of the way to do payments in Bitcoin, and like people don't really want to pay for stuff in Bitcoin, but we really see that Lightning is a way for people to get Bitcoin. It's a way to give
Right.
rewards and tips, and I think that's what a lot of people miss. Just like like CS:GO has over 20 million active monthly users, and it's still so. Even if just like a small percent of them can just like play play that, and oh, I've got some Bitcoin now. Like I didn't do anything different. I played the
Yeah,
game, but
yeah.
now I think
But the
it's an
question then
interesting
is, what's the
mechanism.
model, right? So if you look at something like a fold or a lolly, it's kind of like a cashback model.
Yeah,
So they can earn sats, and there's a business model around that because instead of discount, rebate, whatever, that they would have gotten points on something else or whatever, they're getting sats back. So I
yeah,
think there's like a business model around the earning. So I guess the question then is Lightning Gaming, what's the business model for people to earn sats?
yeah.
And then I can
Well,
see it happen,
I guess there's two at the moment. What one is just like advertisers and sponsors. So like my
Right.
game back in 2013, it was like I would give, and this is really enabled by the Lightning Network. I have a game that makes it's just like $1,000 profit. I can give a percentage of that back as kind of tips. And that kind of increases the stickiness of the game. So that's like one thing.
Yeah.
It's like a self-sustaining kind of. I guess it's like stats back in a way. It's like play to earn.
Yeah.
It's another one is just like competitiveness, but obviously if you compete, you can lose as much as you can win. So
Yeah,
so
exactly.
but
So I
that's
think the
that's
first
funding.
model that you're talking about, that's probably the most likely one to actually take off. But in that case, you would need the game to be, important and fun enough in its own right that
That's
people
why we
want to
added
play
it
it,
to
and then it
CS:GO. I
grows.
suppose instead of
Yeah,
making
because
a
it's kind
game
of like
from
if you're
scratch.
selling an
Yeah,
audience, you
yeah,
kind of need you need an audience to be
sure.
kind of for the sponsors to be interested to then like kind of make the gears turn on the business
Yeah,
model.
I think
But
a
I
lot
think
of
that's certainly a viable thing in the future.
well, I think like that's the thing with a lot of Bitcoin and blockchain games. It's just really difficult to make a game that people want to play, right? Gaming is competitive, so we kind of our idea is that if we can infuse existing games that people will play, we're not changing the game; it's the same
Yeah,
games they
the
play. Then
CS:GO Lightning model. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so I'm taking up a little bit of time, and you're being very generous here. I do have two more questions. one,
Sure. Yeah.
one question I don't really want to ask. Uh, Do you know Craig Wright? Was you in Australia?
No, I don't.
No, no. Was he ever on the scene, or I never heard of him when I was in Australia? Like somebody must know
The
him, right?
one time I never personally interacted with him, but there was a conference in Melbourne in 2014. So I was there as a speaker at that conference. Um, and I saw Craig right up on stage, but I never actually interacted with him. So there were some times where he would, and like there were times where I think he got up on stage with like, there's
Was
like that
he?
famous one where he was up on, there was like Nick Szabo up on stage
Yeah,
and like I
with
think Trace Mayer and
Bitcoin.
some people
Yeah,
like that.
Bitcoin
So he's
Mom.
kind of like, this is years ago, right? Before obviously the recent stuff, but he would try to make out like he was part of the scene or whatever and Bitcoin, like a Bitcoiner, but yeah.
I have a funny story about that. When I was in Japan and Craig Wright came, and for some reason Luke Dash Jr. was also there. And it was like at the time where the Bitcoin, I think it was before the fork, and the Bitcoin meetup was kind of like the small block and large block meetup together, where the small blockers we were like sent to the corner, and everybody was like a big blocker. And Craig Wright came in, and people loved him. Like people were high fiving him and like hugging him, taking photos, and it was like me, Nicolas Dorier, and another developer just in the corner talking to Luke Dash Jr. about 2x, and like and then like Craig like grabbed him, just like Luke was going to the bathroom, and Craig grabbed him and just like took a selfie, and Luke kind of turned away quickly, and I think that was like a photo that went out. Yeah, the guy was a jerk. But then like it's funny because go forward about a few months, everybody in that meetup hated Craig because he made SV. He kind of just like used them in a way, and like
Yeah.
it was just like the sycophant nature of everybody. They were so happy that Craig was here and he was Satoshi and he liked big blocks, and then just to see like everybody just like everybody was telling like Roger and everybody he's lying to you. This guy's not right. I was like, no, and can I buy you a beer, Craig? And literally 6 months later, it ended in tears. So anyway, we'll probably give him too much airtime. That's what he wants. Final question. We have final question. Oh, what's your New Year's resolution? Simple one.
I'm not really
Not
I'm
yet.
not really a New Year's
Huddle.
resolution guy. I just
Yeah,
kind of,
I mean neither.
I just, I just think of things I want to work on and I just go and work on them. I don't really,
I have like
I don't really do the
a
whole New Year's
monthly
resolution thing.
resolution. Makes more sense, I think, right? Like what can I achieve this month? If we're gonna have one in a year, I'm just not gonna do it till December.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, yeah, I just don't have that's just not how I operate.
Yeah. Okay, awesome, good. Okay, anyway, thanks for having on. Where can I guess it's kind of shown on your screen there, but where can people find out more about you? Any final thoughts?
Of course, yeah. So, look, I'm excited to see kind of the whole Bitcoin and Lightning ecosystem grow. I, really love promoting Lightning Network. I often do it. So, certainly get out there and give it a try, play around with it, and like give some feedback to the developers and like let them know what you think about this, that, and the other. Whether it's a Lightning wallet or a game, things like that. And of course, you've got to stay up to date on the space. Make sure you're subscribed to Stephan Livera podcast. You can find it in all
Very
your
educational.
podcatcher
It's
apps.
one of my
Yeah, and I think
go-to podcasts.
yeah, and the thing I would say is many people themselves in the space actually listen and they learn from the show themselves. So make sure you putting in the time to learn about Bitcoin. I have a focus on the technology and the economics. I try to make it accessible for people. So I interview many leading people in the Bitcoin world. So yeah, you can find me at stephanlivera.com.
Yeah.
And yeah, thanks for having me on, Christian.
No, great. Let's do it again and try and break 50 seconds. 48.
Yeah, I'm gonna beat Nicola next time.
The best score by the community is 44. I'll tell you that.
I don't know how anyone gets 44. That's
I've
crazy,
seen
man.
the video. Somebody they thought he was a cheater. But I've seen the video. It's just guy's insane. Anyway, thanks for coming on, and yeah, take care, man.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.